Amanda, this is the Farmville Spotlight, your first time, obviously. Thank you for joining me, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming in. By the way, the Farmville Spotlight is brought to you by the North Street Press Club and your best place for great food and drinks, so check them out. And like I said, today I am sitting in with Amanda. Well, I'm standing, but Amanda's sitting. I am here today with Amanda Gough, I believe, and Amanda is an artist in Farmville, a local artist. She has done paintings and murals. I've seen them around, and I really like them. I like you have a few at the press club. Do you do
Yes.
the ones?
So actually,
Sure.
Press Club was my first mural ever.
Wow.
In my history of murals. So shout out to Nash. Thank you for the leap of faith.
That's a big project. Like your first mural. How do you practice for your first mural?
You don't.
You just start.
You just accept the nervousness and you jump up on a ladder and you just
start painting.
Go to
painting
town.
What if you like? I mean, there's a thing in art that's like, even like Bob Ross, is that right?
Yeah.
Bob, okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I said I've had the latest night. Like last night, I did not sleep well, and so I'm just kind of like, a little scattered this evening. But I got some good coffee,
That's okay.
8 o'clock brand. So hopefully I'm awake by the end of this interview. No. So yeah, the little mistakes in paintings, right? That it kind of adds to the flavor, I guess you can say.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it depends. Sometimes mistakes, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
And it becomes, happy mistakes.
Sure.
And it makes a painting so much better. And then other times you've destroyed months and months of hard work and money on materials and canvases.
Yeah.
But that's just the name of the game.
Interesting. And so let me ask you this, Amanda. Where are you from? Let's get the full story. Are you from around here, or did you grow up elsewhere, out of state?
I was born and raised in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Nice.
So not too far away.
Yeah.
I came down here for school, actually, to go to Longwood.
Nice.
In 2010.
Wow.
Getting old.
No.
But originally, so I came down to school.
Sure.
I was supposed to be a criminal justice major, believe it or not.
Interesting, yeah.
Yes.
Quite the contrast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something liberating with my college years. So I decided to become a figure model for the life drawing classes.
Sure.
And as soon as I stepped in the building, I had this really intense guttural reaction to the surroundings, the paint, the mess.
The smells.
Yeah. And I just never left.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Criminal justice, is that right? Or I'm sorry.
Yes.
Did I hear that right?
It was supposed to be criminal justice.
And
then turned into
the paints and the brushes.
Fine arts and art history. And
wow.
I never looked back.
That's incredible. That is quite like, the two, those are very far off on the spectrum, like the very polar opposites. What did your parents think about that? Oh, if you don't mind me asking.
No, they suggested I take a business class.
Sure.
Or 2.
Sure.
Or 5. But no, they've always been incredibly supportive.
Interesting,
of
yeah.
whatever I've chosen to do. I'm very, very, very blessed.
That's great. Do you remember your first painting?
I do. Well, yeah, I guess this would be my first painting. It was actually a figurative piece, a woman with a hat, and no clothes.
Interesting. Yeah. Very nice. Did they have somebody pose for that, or was that just kind of?
No.
Okay.
It was. I think I grabbed a fine art source photo to be able to sort of grasp the figure.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
How old was I? Probably 16.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like to paint when you were in your early teens, around 13, 14?
I've always been creative.
Sure.
When I was in high school, I actually I pursued culinary arts.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you have a background in the foods.
Yes.
And
nice. Then I kind of just explored different avenues and ended up settling on visual arts.
Nice.
Fine arts. Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. That's exciting. Did you ever work in a restaurant by chance?
Well, I'm a fine art major, so
Okay,
I've worked
sure.
in all of
Okay,
the restaurants.
yes, exactly.
I've
great.
worked in many, many restaurants
Yeah.
for many, many years.
Wow. Yeah. What's that
but-
experience like?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I've always loved it. I've never been a 9 to 5 kind of person.
Sure.
To sit at a desk under fluorescent lighting. I've always needed.
A crazy grill cook by your side. And,
Yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean.
Someone throwing fireworks in the grill.
Yeah.
And-
Yes.
Yep. Shooting.
I once watched a man light a cigarette from like the pilot light of a grill in a kitchen at a restaurant. I'm not going to say which restaurant. This was a while ago, but you know.
Luckily, I've never seen that.
Yeah, yeah. But
Please let everybody know so they don't eat there.
sure. No. I'm kidding. It was me actually. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, that's very cool, Amanda. That's very interesting that you started like you have some like culinary arts, but you really landed on the visual arts as your kind of major, and so like what inspirations do you? What are your inspirations from like art? Do you have any like artists that you look up to?
Very much so.
Okay.
I would say Manet is the artist that really drew me into art history. That sort of modern period in general, where subject matter went from this very sort of classical, traditional, something you'd see in the Louvre, religious Greek, to more realistic. So I remember being in an art history class talking about Manet's Olympia, which was inspired by Titian's Venus of Urbino. But Manet decided to use a sex worker as the subject matter instead of Venus, this sort of, goddess.
Sure.
And that kind of commentary on society really drew me in to art history as a whole.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a very interesting choice. Now, when was you said the press club was your first mural?
Yes.
Is that like when? Would that be your first like kind of projects that you started off working like at the press club, doing paintings there, or when did you start making art to sell?
That actually. So I have been a practicing artist ever since I graduated in 2015. I moved to Richmond, which is very art-focused and art-centric. I worked at a frame shop to learn how to frame my work, and then tried to paint on the side and get into as many shows as I possibly could. So I sold some work there, sold some work in Charlottesville, and then I actually came back to Farmville in 2021 to do a post-bac program at Longwood again as one of their working artists.
Okay, very nice.
And that's sort of when I started to take it a little bit more seriously than I had in the past. I mean, in your early 20s, there's a lot of self-doubt.
Yes, for sure.
And you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
But at that point, I had gained enough life experience to be able to really sort of take that leap.
That's excellent. That is excellent. What was it like working at a frame shop?
It was great. Actually, it was fantastic. I loved it. I was the closer, so I was the lowest on the totem pole, but I learned a ton. It requires you to be incredibly detail oriented, which I'm not, just naturally.
Sure.
And it's a skill set I'll use for the rest of my life because now I can frame my own work. And I loved the people.
What kind of people go into a frame shop? I mean, I'm sure you get like all sorts
all
of
walks of life.
Yeah.
Residential projects, commercial projects, designers, people who have just gotten their diploma or a certificate that would like to get it framed, children's artwork. I mean, it's really a bit of everything.
Do you have a customer that came in that really stuck with you and?
I will say, I definitely still have connections.
Sure.
From people that would come in, clients that would come in, that I work with, that I've sold artwork to, that I've had shows with. We had the owner of a gallery come in and frame their work there, and I was able to connect with them and have a show in 2019, I believe, in Richmond.
Very nice, very nice. Oh, what kind of art shows do you go to? Do you go to other like art shows in Richmond? Or are you kind of like
I used to
on the pulse?
I used to
for
all
that
the time.
scene?
I've separated myself a little bit. I need to get back
Okay.
into it. But we used to go to First Fridays every week and sort of hop and skip around the galleries.
Sure. Nice.
Now I just spend my time on a farm with trees, and I can't say that's too bad either.
Yeah, that sounds very relaxing.
It is.
Well, let me ask you. Have you ever collaborated with another artist and worked on like a piece together? Or is that something?
Haven't.
Okay.
I'm a bit of a loner
Sure.
when I work. But it's not something I would necessarily count out. I would love to. It's something that would probably push me in a direction I need to go, out of my comfort zone.
Sure. I feel you on that. Yeah. It is weird kind of working with other people on something, especially something that's like, I don't want to say your baby, but kind of like your baby, right? I'm sure that's kind of difficult to.
Yeah. And every artist is different.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and they all have different working, styles. But I will say the community as a whole is very collaborative.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you are going to be opening up your own studio in town.
I
which is very exciting.
It is in the process.
And weirdly enough, at a frame shop that does not
Yes.
exist anymore.
Yes.
So that's
Yep.
kind of funny. Interesting. What made you take this leap?
Really space. I work pretty large scale, and I needed space to be able to, have a 48 by 60 varnished and drying while working on, another one.
Sure.
And right now I took out my dining room table.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah.
my studio is my dining room.
Desperate
So-
times right now.
Yeah, you do what you have to.
Yeah.
But in order to be able to support myself full time financially, my production had to,
Increase.
rate had to increase.
Yeah,
Mhm.
interesting. So opening up a studio just seemed like the next step in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things.
And I wanted to frame my own work, and I needed space, and you need tons of space to be able to build a frame and keep the dust out from, the room that you're painting in.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
And do you see this place as being like an open space for people to kind of like take a look at your work, or is it
Oh, very much so.
open to the public?
Open to the public, open studio. Hopefully it'll have a gallery space. I'd like to incorporate art from other artists. I get tired of looking at my own stuff. I want to... I haven't quite nailed down
Sure.
exactly what I want to use the space for. There's a lot of different possibilities, whether it be an artist collective, a place, where artists come in and talk about what they're working on and get critiques and have group shows quarterly. There's a lot of different possibilities
Yeah.
that I'm still kind of nailing
It sounds
down.
kind of exciting, the different like things.
Very much so.
Yeah, I'm
I've
sure.
already had a few discussions with a few different artists around town about the potential.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other like ideas for that? I mean, or that you feel like you want to share, or no, or is it kind of like top secret stuff?
No.
Okay,
It's not top secret. It's just all up in the air.
Okay, sure, got you. That's understandable. Well, I'm very excited for that. It's going to be awesome, I'm sure, and I can't
Thank
wait
you.
for it to be open. And I didn't realize, we were talking earlier about this, but like I always thought that frame shop was still open because the sign is out there, but apparently it's been closed for a little bit.
No, it's been closed for a little while.
Okay,
So it's funny, when I lived here, before I left, oh gosh, I think this was maybe 2015, maybe. So I've always looked at that building, and I've always dreamed of having a studio there. And now I'm actually doing it, so it's a little surreal.
Yeah, I can imagine. That is kind of not spooky, but it is just kind of all coming together.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cool. Well, let me ask you: Have you ever experimented with like oil paintings and stuff?
So
like
that's
that?
my chosen medium.
Oh, interesting. Okay, wow.
So I paint with oil. I also do charcoal drawings. Charcoal was kind of my first love, and I'll explore with a few different mixed media. Screen printing, I started dabbling into screen printing, which I really enjoy. It's a very, very different process with very different demands. And I've had a few mental breakdowns because of it. But the only medium I don't work with is watercolor. And for some strange reason, I just can't seem to wrap my head around watercolor.
What about watercolor? Do you not like, or not that you don't like it, but just like you're not interested in?
I think it's it's permanent in some ways. You make a mark and you can't go over or erase it. And I'm kind of a messy artist in ways, or sorry, I shouldn't say messy. Expressive is probably a better way to describe it. But I like to be able to experiment and just sort of be impulsive and be able to take it back if I need to. I'm not a very controlled artist.
Can I get all over the place? And,
yeah, exactly.
Sure. Yeah, that's understandable. Have you ever had like a creative block in your arts?
Oh, all the time. Like every other day.
When you have a creative block and you're working on several different projects, you just move to the next project that you don't have a creative block on, and how do you resolve that in your own way?
To be honest, I step away.
You step away. Yeah.
I like to cook, so I'll either go to the kitchen and kind of take my mind off things, go for a walk. I luckily live on a pretty large farm with my dog. Her name is Annie. She's a 12-year-old Great Dane in my entire world. And so I'll take her out just to sort of remove myself from the frustration. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah. How does that work?
Not always. Sometimes. If we're being completely honest.
Sure.
I mean, there is no rule book or process, at least not in my experience with art. Art for me is a very intuitive thing. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And you just have to learn to adapt and go with the flow.
Do you feel the creative block lift? Like once you get over it, or you realize what you need to do when it comes to your like work? Do you feel like an actual like leaving your body?
Oh, there's definitely a light bulb moment. Yeah. Followed by a lot more motivation and energy than there was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that is a good moment. I'm sure it's just like somebody put some like starter fluid in you, and it's just like. Psh,
and it's
get things going.
Once it happens, you're like, oh, why didn't I think of this 3 days ago?
Exactly.
What have I been doing doom scrolling on TikTok for 3 days trying to gather inspiration? Sure,
yeah. So your art studio is coming to Farmville, and do you have a date roughly? I think we talked about, like you were saying, this summer.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for a summer reception.
Sure.
It may be more towards the fall. We still have to do some renovations and sort of get the space to a place where I can start to hang work.
Sure. I'm sorry if I'm bouncing kind of all over the place too. I just kind of want to cover all my
No, that's okay.
bases.
I have raging ADHD.
Okay,
so that's how
that's
I live
excellent.
my life.
Okay. That's amazing. I'm glad to hear that. So like when you have an idea for a piece, how do you like go and grab a piece of paper and just like write down the idea, or how soon after you get a really great idea do you actually take the brush to a canvas?
It depends on the workload. Sure. Usually I keep a list in my notes app on my phone.
Sure.
That's kind of my go-to. But on average, maybe a couple of days. Now, if it's something I think is going to be really good and I'm really excited about, I will push everything to the side and just immediately get to it.
Yeah. And just kind of get to work. You don't want to. Do you feel like if you wait too long, you might like lose the idea or like the inspiration that you had?
Oh, 100%. Especially if I don't write it down.
Sure.
Then, I mean, it's gone in a day.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing how ideas do that. Like you have a great one day. If you don't act on it, it's gone.
Yep.
Sorry. That's a very unfortunate part about being human, I guess. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, what is the most challenging part of being a painter in your mind?
I would say, and I think I can speak for most artists when I say this, and that's marketing.
Interesting. Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it with every fiber of my being. The social media is so important, and marketing is so important as an artist. You know, we want to create. That's our bread and butter. That's where we're happy. But what we don't want to do is put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
And sort of sell ourselves, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah. That is difficult. I mean, do you, and I guess you have to do that all yourself. You don't like have somebody.
No.
Yeah.
Yep. It's usually a one-man show.
Interesting.
As an artist. I mean, until you get to the point where you're successful enough, you can outsource.
Sure.
But, you know, this starving artist stereotype is a stereotype for a reason.
So you're like posting like stories on Instagram then, or like
yes.
and stuff like that, just kind of getting it out there, letting the people know, just keeping it out in the social media rabbit hole. Yeah.
And it's mostly connections, actually.
Interesting. Yeah. So you said you've been to some shows in Richmond as well. And just is that a good spot to kind of market your style and kind of
it can be
connect with people?
Absolutely. You know, really anywhere is sort of, you want to cover as much ground as you possibly can. I've had a lot of success in North Carolina.
Interesting.
And I just shipped a piece to Colorado through an art consultant out of Charlottesville. And I have a piece going to a women's initiative, mental health fundraiser in Charlottesville in May. So, I mean, it's kind of, there are a lot of different sort of networking locations that are important.
Sure. Let me ask you this. We were talking about a little bit earlier before we started about like trends and like painting kind of trends, I guess. And you mentioned that like animals are kind of popular.
I started doing animals pretty recently. Traditionally, I love figurative work. I love, people, the figure. But I would say animals sell more. So I sort of started diving into that, which I love. I loved, getting out of my comfort zone and starting something new.
I saw you painted a very cool owl, I think. Is that right?
I did, yeah. That was up at, I hung that at Press Club for a little while, but it sold.
Oh, nice. Wow. Well, there you go. Well, so when it comes to like animal paintings and the popularity behind them, what do you think drives that? Do you think just animals, everybody loves like a painting of a bird, and so is it just? I
mean, I think part of it is sort of connection with nature itself, and then I think everyone has sort of a specific animal they love, or at least in the conversations I've had. I've had, someone's been like, do you do bears or do you do, foxes? And they kind of have this attachment to one or the other. And a lot of the times it's also their personal animal. I do a lot of pet portraits.
Oh, nice. How's that like?
Oh, it's great. I love it.
Do you go off of like a couple of photos, I guess, of like their
I have them
animal?
send in photos. And then I'll, discuss sizing, color palette, that kind of thing.
Do you feel like you have like a certain responsibility to really nail the pet down?
100%. Yeah. That's someone's baby.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't want it to come back, looking
not like their pets.
Yeah.
Exactly. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. How long does it take? So like let's say I gave you a picture of my cat Jeff, roughly.
It's a great name for a cat.
Right? People names for animals. I love that so much. But like roughly how long? I mean, obviously, I guess it does depend on like how much, many paintings you're working on at the current moment, but roughly what is the turnaround time for something like that?
Depends on size, but start to finish, on average, probably 3 weeks.
Interesting. Okay, so you do kind of get them turned around relatively
quickly.
Yeah.
Ish. I mean, it depends on what your definition of quick is, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's very nice. And so what are you currently working on right now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm currently getting a series together to go down to North Carolina, which has been delayed a little bit due to some varnishing disruption, I guess you could say.
What does that mean?
Varnishing is the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
So you varnish when you're finished painting, you will varnish the painting, which is just a protective layer that is removable, but it keeps dust and helps, like, temperature and humidity and regulation, that kind of thing. But it is so finicky, and it's hard to explain, but you have to do it the right way, or it's streaky. And
oh no.
Yeah.
And so if you get it wrong, do you have to take it all off again?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
That's terrible.
Because right now I'm varnishing a 48 by 60 Swan that is going down to North Carolina, and I've had to take it off. I've had to take the varnish off once, and I just redid it today, actually. And I've spent the last hour before I came here picking hair and dust individually out of the varnish.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. It wasn't what I wanted to do with my day, but that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess.
I guess so. Wow. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. Does that happen a lot when you're like trying to seal the painting, as something happens with the varnish?
It can.
I guess it depends on your environment as well.
Yeah, and varnishing larger pieces, for me, is a lot harder. And varnishing a piece that has a black background is harder because you see everything. Everything.
That's unfortunate. That is. Wow. Well, what are some like tactics do you use to kind of help prevent stuff like that, other than just trying to make sure the environment is clean?
That's really all you can do.
Yeah.
Try and make sure you're in a dust-free environment.
Sure.
And you dust the painting before, like you prep before. You either oil out, which is where you have linseed oil, and Gamsol, which is a medium and a mineral spirit, that you sort of rub on the painting to even out the sheen beforehand. I could go into technicalities, but sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, I also wanted to ask you, I just thought of this. You mentioned earlier that you've tried teaching.
I did.
And it didn't go super great?
No, I'm not a teacher.
How was that experience like, if you don't mind me asking?
Enlightening. I taught pre-K through 8 for a semester. And it was great. I am just not a very good teacher.
Yeah.
I can't, not that I can't, but I'm not very good at explaining what I do. If that makes sense.
No, I get that. Yeah. Well, yeah. But I think
or like helping someone achieve.
Yeah, what they want. Yeah. It is a different like genetic. I feel like teachers are just a different
100%.
Type of being. Yeah, I could never. It's like almost like when you're trying to teach somebody, you start not knowing what you're saying.
Exactly.
Like, what is up with
I'm
that?
like, how do I do this?
How do you exactly? You start questioning everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is difficult. How were your teachers when you were first starting out?
I loved my teachers. I'm sure a lot of people will recognize this name. I had Dr. Edmondson, who was wonderful for my studio classes. And then I had my advisor, Dr. Sabatis. She was my art history advisor. And I owe graduating to her.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. Man, she yeah, wow. Yeah. Well, what was it like being in the art history class? And is that like a very difficult kind of like?
I think it takes a specific individual.
Sure. Yeah.
For me, it was fascinating and I loved it. But I also was in certain classes with people who were not art history majors,
Sure.
and they hated it, and they said it was so dry and so boring, and it was just dates and names and information. So I think
Depends on
it's
the person.
Subjective.
Absolutely. Well, Amanda, at this time, we do have to jump into a quick commercial break.
Absolutely.
We will be right back after this message.
Craving great food and drinks in downtown Farmville? North Street Press Club is the place to be. Enjoy global grub and local vibes, whether you're dining in or relaxing on our patio. Good times are always on tap. Call us at 434-392-9444 for easy pickup or to discuss your catering needs. Let's make your next event delicious.
So good.
Visit North Street Press Club today, where food, drinks, and fun meet.
And we are back on the Farmville Spotlight on WFLO AM 870 in Farmville. Once again, the Farmville Spotlight is brought to you by North Street Press Club, your go-to place for great food and drinks. I have Amanda Gough in the studio today, discussing the painting and her different works of art. And we were just talking about when you were in school and your teachers. Did your teachers ever give you? Obviously, teachers constantly give valuable advice, but was there any valuable advice that really stuck with you that your teachers imparted upon you?
Yes. I was speaking with my professor about getting a graduate degree and being concerned that I couldn't afford any further student loan debt.
Ooh.
And I remember she said, Amanda, they cannot repo your education. And that always kind of stayed with me.
Yeah, that is funny. That is good. Yeah, wow. What was your favorite part about your art history class?
I would say my thesis. I really, really enjoyed the research behind it. I explored representations of the female body in German modern works versus those accepted by the Third Reich, and how sort of that sort of depiction influenced women and the idea of femininity and all of that stuff. I ended up finding two different ledgers that were written, by the Third Reich. They kept records of everything they looted and stole, and they described what happened to it, what they did with it, whether they destroyed it or whether they put it in the I think it's called the Ethische Kunst. It was a degenerate art show where they put artwork on display that they found grotesque.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Women weren't allowed because we were too susceptible to depravity.
Of course,
apparently.
Yeah.
So,
No. That's terrible. Wow.
But just doing that kind of research and being able to sort of see the provenance of different paintings and dive into that period of history.
Yeah.
Really.
Let me ask you this. I was at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking at some I guess I was in a German section. I don't exactly remember where, but it was like 1920s Germany paintings, and I guess everything was so dreary, from the colors to just like the way that the figures were painted. It wasn't like very realistic, but it was just like upsetting to look at. What were they doing? What was going on in Germany back in the 20s, Amanda?
So now you're bringing me back to my art.
It might have been
days, which was like a
Impressionist?
decade
Yeah,
ago,
sure.
so I may not be, I may be mistaken in
Sure.
some of this, but after World War One, Germany was paying reparations. No one had any money. Soldiers were coming back injured if they were coming back at all. Prostitution was on the rise. No one was very, well, I don't want to say no one, but there was a lot of struggle in Weimar Germany, and trying to have a democracy. And so artists started to reflect that in their work. Otto Dix, Kirchner, Emil Nold, they started to kind of reflect that society back onto itself in their artwork. They started to sketch different lewd acts, different representations of, women, and a lot of it was not pleasant. So I think the color choice was very intentional.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you try to do that with your own art? Like choose a color that specifically represents certain things? Or?
In certain works, sure. I tend to go for a little bit of a specific palette, a little bit more on the neutral side, but I don't know if it really has a meaning behind it other than the fact that I like it.
Let me ask you, have you ever made any abstract work?
No. That's one thing I cannot do is abstraction. I've tried. I guess I can do it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't necessarily strike a chord with me.
Interesting. When did you try doing abstract?
In school.
Okay.
I don't think I've tried since. I've tried to work with prepared ground, which means you kind of just throw stuff down on whatever, paper or canvas you're using and work from that surface. But I haven't done an abstract start to finish.
Interesting. Wow.
I'm just a representational kind of girl.
Yeah. Oh, do you see yourself doing an abstract piece later on in the future, maybe? Or
no.
What do you think? No? You don't see it? No, okay.
Probably not. Who knows?
Yeah.
You can't say one way or the other 100%. But I just love form too much.
Sure. Yeah.
I would explore different styles and, different choices in that representation, but I probably couldn't do 100% abstraction.
Yeah.
Not to say that that's not, incredibly challenging, and, those who can do that, I commend them and I envy them, actually. My brain just doesn't work that way.
What was the hardest piece you've ever done from start to finish? Most time-consuming, most mentally draining, most exhausting piece, if you have one?
Is probably the swan that I'm getting ready to throw through a window. If we're being completely honest. That was months and months of changes and development and, redoing things and going back over mistakes. So technically speaking, I wouldn't say it was the hardest thing I've done.
Sure.
But getting it to a place where I was happy with it very much was so.
Interesting. What would be the hardest piece, other than the swan, you think?
That is a good question.
We can come back to it too.
I can't really say that. Yeah. There's been works that have been relatively challenging, but I enjoy it, so it's not exactly hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
a part of the process almost.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to murals, obviously those are very difficult. How many have you done, by the way?
Only 3. So my first mural ever was for Press Club. We had to close down for some maintenance, and Nash and I discussed taking the time to put a mural up. And to be completely honest, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was really scared of it. I was really nervous, which I didn't tell Nash about, so sorry, Nash. But it just all kind of came together, and it was great.
It's amazing. How long did that take you?
About 3 weeks,
wow.
Give or take.
Is that about a normal? That's a normal time for murals as well.
Well, so murals are so different from my oil paintings because you use house paint, it's acrylic, and so you have to completely change the way you paint.
Yeah.
Instead of color blocking and being able to go back in and add detail and blend, throughout the entire piece, you have to work one small section at a time.
Yeah.
And the paint dries probably less than 5 minutes after you apply it to the wall. So it's more so layers, lots and lots of layers.
Yeah. When it comes to oil painting, what is it? How is it different than painting? Well, I mean, I don't want to say how is it different, but like, what is it like to work with oil painting?
Oh, it's lovely. It's my favorite. It's kind of a religious experience for me.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's there's a lot more that goes into painting with oil than acrylic or watercolor.
Yeah.
Like as far as different just products that you have to use.
Sure.
So there's the paint itself. There's the mediums that you use to mix with the paint that either extend, the amount of paint you can use, adds body, can either slow drying time or make it faster. And then you've got the mineral spirits, which thin out the paint, and all of the different techniques. It takes a lot longer to dry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot more, I believe, sorry, this is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I am not the authority
Sure.
on painting, but I think it takes, it's just a lot more of a process, which I
Interesting.
love.
Yeah. I love oil paintings. They have just a certain quality about them. Visually, I remember my Donna, Italian grandmother. She had a oil painting of like a house in a field and like half of a fence that was like not finished all the way, or maybe it just fell apart. I don't know, and like a little bit of a lake, and but it was painted on glass, I think.
Oh, wow.
Are you familiar with like that kind of like painting on glass at all?
I haven't painted on glass before. I
Sure.
know people who do, but I'm not as familiar with it. I'm more of a canvas
Yeah.
and a wall kind of artist.
How many easels do you own?
My mother just got me my first studio easel.
Oh, nice.
Thanks, Mom.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, it's one of the, giant 4 feet wide, 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
On 4 wheels.
Beasts.
Yes, which I love. But that's it. Before that, I was working on like a travel easel that I got at Michael's. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you do what you have to.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to actually, while I'm thinking about
Yes.
it, I was able to tour the new Seed Innovation Hub, which I'm not sure you've heard of.
No.
And it's over near the Chick-fil-A, where Barnes & Noble used to be.
Yes. Yeah.
It's in that space, and it is a new organization that has so many tools. 3D printing, laser engraving, routing tables, computer lab, podcast
Everything.
studio.
Wow. Oh, wow.
everything. And it's going to be, I think it's the Small Business Development Center. The new Small Business Development Center is going to be in that space, and we're working on a mural now.
Oh my God.
For their
wow.
clean lab. And that's something I'm really excited about, because as a small business owner, you can't always get access to specific machines.
Sure.
Or, spaces. Like, that's why I'm opening up a studio now.
Yeah.
But this is going to provide so much for the community, so much for the
A
students.
lot of assets. It sounds like for people to kind of,
And I just want everybody to know about it.
That's amazing. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
When is that opening, or is it?
I believe it's
Already open?
I believe it's open now, or
Okay.
sort of a soft
Okay.
opening. I wouldn't recommend you just walk in.
Yeah.
Maybe call them.
Yeah.
But I believe they're going to be doing some programming throughout the summer, and hopefully opening up to the community as a whole soon.
Sure. Let me ask you. I'll tell you what happened. I went to Walmart, which I don't often do, big corporation. I walk in, and this is after the renovations. I noticed they have a really cool mural of Farmville. Do you know who did that?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
It was very unexpected because I'm like, I feel like when you go to Walmart, it's like a very dreary place. But to be greeted with a very nice mural, it was kind of just like odd, It was nice.
And see, that's what art does.
Yeah.
It completely changes the energy of an entire space.
Yeah. It really does, yeah. What kind of art do you hang up at your own house? Do you hang up some of your own, I'm sure?
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's only because I can't afford to
Sure.
get some I really want yet.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of vintage stuff in my house.
Interesting.
A lot of vintage frames from when I worked at the frame shop, mirrors. I have a piece, his name is, I think it's Hendrik Grice. I have a pen and ink from him. He was an artist, I think from the 80s. I have a few different works from other contemporaries, like out in Richmond and Charlottesville, and lots of my own work.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you feel like having that, like just different art hanging up in your home, is that like inspiration in some way? Or is it just... It
creates
a nice
energy.
environment. Yeah. That's fair. Let me ask you, I don't think I've asked you this yet, but when you're painting, do you do something, do you like have a routine? I'll put it that way. Do you like, okay, I'm going to play this cassette tape, or not cassette tape, but like I have this playlist for like painting, etc.
Kind of. I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I paint. Right now I'm listening to the entire Harry Potter series for the second time.
Congratulations. That's nice. That's nice.
Or music. It all just depends sort of on how I'm feeling that specific day.
Yeah. Do you find that listening to those like an audiobook versus like certain songs, like does your work vary, or like how you paint vary? Or is it pretty consistent?
Not really.
Okay.
I kind of tend to tune it out anyway.
Interesting.
It's just something
Background
that my
noise.
Brain needs.
Yeah.
I can't work in
ADHD.
silence.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. No, I'm the same way. That's so funny. Have you ever had somebody watch you paint?
Oh, no. I don't allow it.
Are you serious?
No, never.
Never?
Never.
Not once?
No, I will push you out of my studio.
Has anybody like walked in accidentally while you were painting? Maybe like the mural. When you painted the.
Well, that's different.
Okay.
I'm not going to shut down.
You're not going to.
Construction or work because I'm painting.
Yeah.
But if I'm in my studio, I really like to be alone.
Interesting. Okay.
I have had people ask if they can watch, and that is a hard no.
What about if you've like filmed yourself painting? Would you want that released at all?
I've tried. I
really?
personally hate it. I mean, because sometimes you film it for social media purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
It just takes me out of the entire experience.
Yeah, because it's just being recorded for. I know what you mean. It could definitely.
Well, you can't really just lose yourself in the act of painting, because you have to make sure that the lighting is good and that it's in focus, and that your phone is at the right angle, and it's usually impeding. It's like on a ring light stand. It's usually in the way, and I hate it. But it's an unnecessary evil if you actually want to be successful. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that about you. That is interesting. That is totally off the table. Interesting.
I'm working on boundaries.
Yeah. No, that is important. It's an important thing to work on, Amanda. Have you ever made a painting for family? Like as a nice Christmas present?
Yes. Yes.
Or something on the lines of that?
I have done paintings for family. I did a pet portrait for my mom for Christmas. And I did a pet portrait for my grandmother.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
And I need to do another one for my other grandmother.
Okay. Is that one in the works or not?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It needs to be. I need to push it up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that is great to hear. Have you ever had a moment strike while you were painting, like almost like a moment of inspiration while you're painting something and you're going through the motions, and then something clicks and you decide to maybe take the painting, take it in a different route?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. I never really
Interesting.
have a set plan
Okay.
when I start. I mean, I have a rough idea of what I want it to look like, but I usually let the process kind of drive me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I just sort of, I'll put the brush on canvas and I'll start mark making, and that just kind of leads me to making other marks,
Sure.
which leads me to making other marks. It's a very intuitive experience for me.
Yeah.
It's not as disciplined, maybe as it should be, but I like it, and it's been successful thus far.
Yeah. Wow, that is very cool. Do you have any things that are like obviously your studio is coming soon? Do you have any other like things that you're planning out, events that you might be going to take your art? Fair. I don't want to say fairs, but like you know what I mean, like different events like that
I would say
coming up.
I've got the fundraising event for women's mental health
Nice.
in
Yeah.
Charlottesville, and that's in May, and I'll have a piece, donating a piece in the auction. I'm taking the series down to North Carolina, and that's going to be at ACP Interiors. And then I'm working on a summer series, which I don't want to talk about too much yet because it is very much so still in my brain.
Sure.
And I haven't nailed everything down, but it's going to be very different. It's not going to be animals.
Okay. So you're really changing it up.
Yeah.
I like I said, I was looking on your Instagram and I was like, I like the animals. I think they're cool. I would honestly buy an animal painting. And I guess animals are just like, I mean, who doesn't like an animal? You know, so. So that is exciting. So you're changing it up, but you can't give too much away. A little
Not
bit.
yet, just
Okay.
because I don't know
Okay.
exactly what it's going to be quite yet. And as much as I love the animals, and as much
Sure.
as I'm going to continue doing the animals,
Sure.
I don't necessarily want to pigeonhole myself as an artist into anything specific.
Sure.
I know artists are supposed to have an identifying style and or subject matter, but I kind of disagree with that in a way.
You think, yeah.
I would hate to limit myself based off what someone expects or wants. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, I know what you mean. Well, have you ever painted, just as a comparison, have you ever painted like buildings and or?
No, I have been asked, but I mean, if you ask me to paint a building or like a boat or a car or anything like that, it will look like a child did it.
Are you sure?
I promise you.
I don't know about that.
I promise you.
That's a bit of an exaggeration.
Oh, I've tried.
right?
It's just people think because you paint, you can paint everything.
Sure.
But that's not always the case.
By the way, I do want to open up the phone line. If anybody has a question for Amanda, they can call in at 434-394-0924. That is the number to call in if you do have a specific question for Amanda about painting, her projects, etc., etc. Amanda, do you sign your paintings, or do you kind of like?
I started signing.
Sure.
You know, on the standard bottom right corner, but I've actually started signing the back.
Interesting. Okay. Not to interfere with the piece.
Yeah.
That is one thing about like paintings that I see signed in the front. I'm like, oh, it's like I get why they do it. I mean, it's like not it's not like interfering that much, but it is like smart to put it on the back as well. That's a good idea. Do you for like paintings that you're selling? Do you sign them or do you just kind of?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
always sign the back.
Okay.
Sometimes I sign the front, sometimes I don't. It depends on the specific piece
Sure.
and whether or not I think it's going to be distracting.
Okay, that's fair. How do you pick a frame for a painting?
Well, that's a difficult question. A lot of it has to do with sort of what you want to highlight in the painting itself, just what complements the work without distracting you, because you don't want the frame to take away from the painting.
Sure.
But you also have to look at price. There's a lot that goes into picking a frame.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get back to that in a second. We do have a caller on the phone. If you want to throw those headphones on, actually, so you can hear them. Caller, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I have a question in reference to this is art in general, and because it seems like it's an opinion. Sometimes you see art or you go to a show, and some of the art looks like somebody's kid did it.
Yes.
And they're charging gobs of money for it. You kind of know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
And so what makes the art a quality piece or expensive? Is it the artist or...
You are asking a $1 million question that I don't know if I have the authority to answer or not. But I will. And that's been a reoccurring question.
Do you have to die or something to get it, make it expensive?
Gosh, value in art is so, there is no rule book. A lot of it is if someone with influence says it's valuable, if that makes sense. A lot of it is people wanting to invest money in something that they think, will grow.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone who is, a famous curator says that this person is,
Kind of goes along with the marketing thing, I want to say again.
Yeah. And again, it's not that. Art is just so subjective. So even me saying that, there's going to be other people that think it's just magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally, I'm trying to be so PC here.
Sometimes I think it's somebody calls it nice, a nice piece of work, just because somebody that is influential says that it is.
Yes. Yes, that definitely comes into play, but it also it sort of starts this dialogue around who has the authority to say what art is good. And that's been a conversation ever since Dadaism. And I can't remember the artist's name who had the urinal on its side.
Yeah.
That's I can't remember where it is now, but and that's a conversation that everyone is still having today. And again, I think it's really it's just opinion at this point. I mean, I think we've all seen the banana and the
Andy
duct tape.
Warhol.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It was a banana that was duct taped to a wall in I think it was Miami, but it sold I want to say for over $1 million. Again, I couldn't tell you what the value is. Just me personally.
It has a short shelf life, doesn't it?
I think some would say it's more about the message than it is the technique. I'm a technique person.
Okay.
That's what I place value on. So that's what I am going to, that's what I would spend more money on. But again, if you're a commentary person or, a concept person, then maybe you would like something that's, sending a specific message rather than illustrating a certain image.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, caller?
Yes, it kind of does. It seems like, without...
But again, there are much more educated people than me on this very topic that would probably have a very different answer.
Oh, okay. And do you think you have to produce then like one piece and it's a big hit, and then everything after that is just, we got to have her?
In some people's stories, that's how it goes.
Okay.
In others, it's a very slow build where you just put the work in. And it just sort of becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you're at a place where you've been noticed and you can have an audience.
All right. Yes, and like Sugar. Who's the one that did Starry Nights and
Van Gogh?
Oh gosh, yes. Like some of his stuff is just like ugh. And then some of it is just you have to stare at it, and it's like okay. I'm starting to get the hang of it.
That's art for you. It's just subjective. One, person's ugh is another person's like
I've got to have
masterpiece.
This. Yeah.
Yes, I guess it's like like music.
Exactly.
But okay. So, just a quick question then. Based on that, first question, do you think you have to be educated to be called a good artist?
Oh no, not at all.
Go to our show and someone's like, "What's your credentials?"
No,
I went to blah blah School of Art.
So there's actually folk art. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of
Yes,
folk art, but that folk artists are self-taught artists. So you don't have to be, traditionally educated at all to pursue the career.
Then here's one quick question. Being in the age of AI, do you see that people are bringing in art that is artificially generated, but yet looks as though it is human strokes, and you have to compete with that now?
There is a little bit. I wouldn't say it ever looks human created, but there have been AI-driven shows. So shows that have been just work that's been created by AI. And then there's also a lot of shows that will say AI work not accepted.
Oh. And you would know if you looked at a piece?
Yes.
Okay.
But because most of them you would have to submit, the piece physically. And, I mean, I guess you don't always know, but I think you'd be able to tell if a work's been created by AI.
Right. Well, thank you. Those have been a few questions that I've been pondering for quite a while.
Well, I hope I've answered them okay.
Well,
yes, you have.
Oh, yes. We do have to get going now, but thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, that was an interesting call. I didn't even think about asking about like why some paintings are outrageously priced. I don't want to say outrageously, but it does kind of look not amateur, but just like
we could spend a whole other hour on that.
That's actually episode 2, part 2 of this episode. No, well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming in. You've been an incredible guest. Absolutely,
thank you for having me.
I'm excited for your art studio coming in. And do you want to mention where people can find you? Do you have a website or social media?
I do have a website. It's still kind of in the works, but it is agoughfineart.com. And then most of my work you can see on Instagram. And oh God, I'm a terrible millennial. Hold on, I don't even know what my handle is. Bear with me.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay.
It is Gough.art. And that's Gough, like cough, but with a G.
Yeah, not Gough, like, hey, I'm going to the course to go golfing. No, anyways. Well, Amanda, thank you so much. You've really been amazing, and I look forward to your studio coming to Farmville. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's been another episode of the Farmville Spotlight here on WFLO AM 870. We'll be signing off. Tune in to the next hour. John Staten's going to be live here in the studio, so enjoy that. Now, Massard signing off.